Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity, and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose. All right. Well, welcome, Kwame. We are so excited to talk to you about building better health inside a Black founder's mission. You are currently the founder and CEO of bEHR Health Systems, and bEHR's mission is to deliver medical, lifestyle, and social solutions to health for African Americans. Your mission at bEHR is to maximize Black health using health equity best practices and the latest innovations in anti-aging and longevity. Your vision is also to make health part of Black culture, placing it at the core of how we live, learn, work, and celebrate in the Black community. And we're just so grateful again to have your time. You were nominated by the community. And so we have continued to grow this community with Identity Unboxed all the way from Seattle now to New Orleans. So you're our first guest from New Orleans, which is really cool. And so we're excited for your network to hear about us and also for our network to discover you and your amazing innovation. But our first question for you is, can you take us back to the moment when you got interested in public health and share how your time at Xavier University, a private Catholic HBCU, influenced your professional trajectory?
Yeah, Xavier was a really big part of, is a very big part of who I am today. So I was born here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Grew up in a family of runners. So, health and wellness and fitness have always been a part of my life. When I was a junior in college or junior in high school, the track coach at Xavier University of Louisiana reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in, running there. I had played baseball all of my life, and that was my personal mission, was to become a professional baseball player. But just, I guess, had to be realistic about it, and ultimately ran in college and allowed that to kind of carry me through my academic career. My goal was to become a doctor when I first decided to go to Xavier. So for those who don't know, Xavier produces the most students who go on to complete medical school, most Black students who go on to complete medical school out of any university in the country. And we're a small university, 3,000 students in the undergraduate level. And so I figured this would be a good place for me to be, considering, again, my cross-country and track aspirations, as well as my medical professional aspirations. But about 2 years into undergrad, I was introduced to research and really just developed an appreciation for understanding problems from the root of the issue and developing solutions that address that root cause. As a provider, as a physician, you spend a lot of time managing problems, right? So managing hypertension, managing diabetes. I'm more interested in preventing it, right? Save a lot more money, save a lot more time, improve a lot more quality of life that way. It's a harder problem to solve, obviously, especially in a country like the US, where the country is dead set almost on making us as unhealthy as possible. And so, yeah, that's kind of what introduced me to public health. And then after I graduated in 2015, I spent about 4 or 5 years trying to decide exactly what I wanted to spend my time doing here on Earth. And eventually I landed back in school at Xavier. The track and cross country coach at the time reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in coaching, because he'd pay for my graduate school if I decided to coach. So honestly, the track program has been a significant part of me getting free education, both at the undergraduate level and master's level. But I'm really glad I did that program. It was a concentration in health equity, a master's of public health with a concentration in health equity. And it truly oriented me to solve health problems through a health equity lens, which turns out to be the most effective way to do that. And yeah, took everything that I learned from that and incorporated it into how we are building bEHR.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing the beginning of your journey. And that's so cool that you were able to have your education funded through your athletics. I think it's great that you had a personal connection to the work that you're doing now. And I'm sure that's lended to your passion for all the innovation that's currently happening with Bear. But I was going to ask you just a little bit more about kind of what that environment was like being at an HBCU, immersed around predominantly Black students at the university, even though it's a smaller university. And so, can you speak to that and how that influenced your work as well?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood in
Okay.
Houston, Texas. So I mean, it was a complete 180 from high school to college. Yeah, I didn't really have any problem with it, or I don't recall any significant like experience shifts or discomfort or anything like that. It's I was celebrated in the white community, and I was celebrated in the black community at Xavier when I got there. Um, but I didn't really start to recognize or appreciate what I had until later on, or like the experience of being at an HBCU until later on. When I guess you could say, made it back into normal society where there's a bit more diversity. Um, yeah, just you don't act the same around certain groups as you do around your community. You don't feel as comfortable to express all of who you are around certain groups as you do within your community. And again, it's not until you go experience the contrast. And I had to experience it after the fact because growing up in Kingwood, that was all that I knew. So that wasn't abnormal for me. It wasn't, I didn't feel uncomfortable in any way. But again, after being away for 4 years and then kind of coming back and being around some of the folks from high school, yeah, you just notice that we have different values, different goals in life, and yeah, it definitely was a valuable experience. And many of my best friends now for life are people that I met at Xavier. And now that I'm even still here with the internship program that we run on campus for students, public health students, and coaching, again, just, essentially, I feel like I'm always adding family members to my life through these experiences. And yeah, it's really been a core part of what we do. And, the HBCU now is essentially home to Bear Health, headquarters of Bear Health, and it's just been a staple to my life, honestly, over the past decade.
I love that. I always said if I could do it over again, I'd go to an HBCU. I
Hmm.
was wondering if you could speak more to how sports contributed to maybe your work ethic or just your overall character, because I know you mentioned how it got you through academics, but how did it influence you in your personal life as you've navigated your career, interpersonal relationships, and things of that nature?
Hmm. Well, sports have always been like a cornerstone of, I guess, my personal brand. Before personal brand was a thing, you know, elementary school, high school, middle school, that I was very associated with sports and being good at sports. Maybe I was naturally talented at many sports, but really tried hard. And I don't think most people knew that or recognized that. But I just really wanted to be good at everything that I did. Not sure exactly where that drive came from per se, like what that desire came from, but uh, that's really, I think, what set me apart early on and what helped me stand out. Again, just within my community, even like things like tetherball or dodgeball in elementary school. Like I took these things very seriously. It was not a game to me, and again, I carried that same mentality into academics and everything. And again, I wasn't necessarily trying to beat everybody. Okay, maybe I lied. I think I was actually trying to beat everyone, but I really was just tried. I was just trying as hard as I could. That was the foundation of it, and then wherever I landed, is where I landed. Cross country and track, specifically running. Again, I grew up in a family of runners. All of my other siblings were actually better than I was, or better than I am. Well, I can actually beat them all now, but in our primes, I think they were all a bit faster than me, mainly because they exclusively ran. So I played baseball in the spring, and then I ran in the fall. They all ran year round. And the thing about distance running, endurance sports, you're never going to outperform the work you put in. Just there's just no random moment of just aerobic capacity. Like either you have it or you don't. In baseball and other sports, there's luck and chance, and maybe you hit the ball just where it needed to be, just in that particular moment, and it went over the fence. But things like that don't happen in running. It is truly rooted in the time you put in, time on feet, the mileage that you have, and it builds over time. It compounds, and as that relates to business, uh, I think it helped me understand just sticking to the fundamentals. Right? There's a bit more luck and chance that comes about in business, but I don't really I try not to rely on that at all. Not that I'm not open to it coming into the business, and not that we haven't had favor throughout our journey, but ultimately any business, you're making sales. That's the ultimate goal. Now, whether a sell is somebody downloading your app or a sell is you selling a product or service, you're trying to inspire someone to engage with your product. And ultimately it's a numbers game. And this influencer that I listen to, he says he always talks about the story of the sower, and how the sower, there are a few different components to the story, where the sower had excellent seed and he was an ambitious sower. And those are the two core components. Um, and he kept sowing. And if you sow a good idea long enough, it'll fall on good people, and you'll have a business or you know, an impact. And so I just kind of stick to those chords, and what happens if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear. And that's a key phrase. Uh, let's say you're trying to get people to download your app or buy your product, and you talk to 10 people and one person buys. Okay, now a ratio has started, 1 out of 10. So if you want to get to 100 sales, well, you need to talk to 1,000 people. If you want to you get 100,000 sales, you need to talk to whatever the math is for that. And I live by that in our work. To start, it was about applying to programs like accelerators and incubator programs. That was my first core activity. Um, Ratios can be improved though. Like maybe over time, when every 3 or every 10 people you talk to, now you get 3 people to engage with you, because you get better at sharing your vision, telling your story. You have more evidence around the value of it, right, over time. But um, I focus on the activity. That's what really makes me feel like I'm doing something. It's less about the outcomes. I've detached myself from the outcome, and I just focus on the activity. Um, and if you do the activity, the outcomes will come. And again, same thing with running, right? If I put the mileage in, I'm gonna have the aerobic capacity to run faster. Period. And that reduces my anxiety overall around this work.
Yeah, that's so valuable what you shared. And it really does sound like your work ethic has translated to your business endeavors. Like you said, it's incremental, the progress, but you're able to quantify it by that consistency and just continuing to kind of assess, what are the actual ratios? What, is the action plan I need to take? And it'd be similar to like creating a running, plan to increase your distance. And so for you now, it's like you're creating your business plans, and that takes so
Yep.
much time, but you're still seeing that progress over time. So just pivoting a little bit, I know you mentioned research was a big part of your interest in getting into public health. And we know that you've had a variety of experiences researching in the field of biology at universities like UCLA and Brown. And you also participated in startup accelerator programs with Harvard and Volunteers of America. Can you share
Mhm.
for our listeners how you discovered these opportunities and provide advice for those interested in diving into the startup environment?
Yeah. I think the most important, I guess, practice that I engaged in, that always gave me the opportunity to get a chance for some of these programs, is that I did a really good job of communicating my, I guess, career goals and ambitions to my mentors. Right. So your mentors are people who obviously have networks that you don't. Right. They have access to people that you don't. And a lot of mentors are there, and a lot of people have mentors, but they don't necessarily do a great job of communicating clearly to their mentors what they want to accomplish in their career. And so the mentor can't be as effective as they could be. So I think that's one thing that I did early on. I did a really good job of early on. I would just let my mentors know, hey, I want to go earn a PhD. Hey, you want to earn a PhD? Well, you need to do summer programs. Here are some summer programs. Um, and I think also applying with what you have now. I think people wait often until they have everything they feel like they need to apply. But just like put yourself out there. I applied to one program in undergrad. It's called MARC, Minority Access to Research Careers, I think, something like that. Might have butchered the acronym. But I applied to MARC, but I didn't get in. And I think it came with like a $5,000 scholarship per semester. That would have been great. But so I didn't get into that program and that was on campus here at Xavier. But about 2 weeks later, they reached out to everyone who had applied and said, "Hey, UCLA is looking for Xavier students to participate in this brain research initiative at UCLA." And I'm very interested in neuroscience and all that in the mind. And I applied. I think only like four or so people applied, and I was one of the two selected. Right? Because again, they were looking for specifically from Xavier. Um, and so it's just like again, I put myself out there. I didn't get into MARC. I wasn't good enough, whatever. But I got an opportunity now to go to UCLA. And then that opportunity, obviously now I'm telling a better story when I'm applying to programs moving forward. And so when I applied to Brown the following semester, I was accepted into that program again because I'm working with more, like my resume is just better overall. But at first I was willing to just put myself out there with what I had. So I think that that's an uh, important thing to like note for folks. And that again, like it doesn't matter. People aren't really going to judge you like you think they are, and you can ultimately do more work when you aren't worried about what people think, right? So fast forward now to incubator and accelerator programs, similar mentality, letting my mentors and network know what I'm interested in, and I've applied to probably about 120 plus incubator and accelerator programs over the past 2 years. And I have friends who say, "Man, how do you get into so many programs? Like, is Bear just that good?" I'm like, honestly, I don't know. It's like 1 out of 10 right now. Yeah, so maybe not. Like, again, going back to that ratio thing. But early on, I was like, okay, well, this activity would be really good for the business because we get funding from these incubator programs. We get access to new networks from these incubator programs. We get to avoid mistakes that or avoid making mistakes that startups typically make because these people can help us avoid these roadblocks and these potholes on our journey because they've already done it. So I just strategically, I wanted to surround myself with that kind of knowledge, network, and experience. And again, I just spent 3 months straight applying to incubator and accelerator programs, and then it seems like every Friday at one point we were getting accepted into a program. Um, and then when I stopped doing that, we stopped getting accepted into programs. It's very very simple, you know. And again, you do have to be willing to not get accepted too, right? And part of what separates someone who's done 7 applications from someone like me who's done 120 is really the fear of, am I going to get in? Is this worth my time? Just give yourself a chance.
That's awesome. I love how you describe that. When you didn't get into Mark, it seems like the universe opened another door for you to go to UCLA. And I was wondering if you could speak more to the importance of not giving up when you are rejected, because a lot of students probably, and people in general, if they're starting their own companies and things like that, if they don't see the right ratios, they might get discouraged and want to quit. So I was wondering if you could speak more to maybe what was going through your mind when you got that rejection and any advice you have to people who have a little imposter syndrome or want to give up if they don't necessarily get into whatever program that they want to.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to, one, be sure that this is something that you're absolutely passionate about and it's solving a real problem. I think getting rejected is sometimes an indication that, um, again, that you might not be solving a real problem or that others might not see this as something, and that's okay. Like you have to be okay with that. We deliver our product and service through an app that gives you a health score right now. If that ultimately does not isn't the best idea or the best approach, it doesn't matter to me that that delivery isn't the most effective. What matters to me is like what is the most effective solution for solving this particular problem. So I think like detach yourself from whatever relationship you might have with the idea or concept and focus on how do I learn as much as I can from people who are dealing with the problem that I'm trying to solve, and how do I test as many solutions as possible, ideas as possible against those problems, until I get to something that makes sense that people are engaging with. And that's something you'll learn in these incubators. That is, again, it's all about customer discovery, talking to people who you're trying to solve the problem for, and then testing and iterating and iterating and iterating until you have something that clicks. Um, but ultimately, also it's also rooted in volume. So when I applied to Mark, I think that may have been like the first one or two programs, but still, I was applying to more programs, I think, than most other folks at that time. And when you apply to more programs and you don't get into some of them, you don't feel that as deeply because you have a few other chances in the mix. Right. So to mitigate my sense of fear around like getting rejected, I just shoot a lot of shots. Period. This works in a variety of aspects of life. So this may not. Anyway, I'm just going to share it. A few of my athletes would always ask me, call me like I'm always super nervous to talk to this girl or what have you. I'm like, you know, if you're only shooting one shot, you're going to be super nervous. I'm not saying you need to be shooting shots at multiple women at the same time, but it may help you reduce your anxiety as you approach this one girl that you really want. Um, but yeah, again, the point is your brain is always operating from a scarcity perspective, and that's just how we evolved. But if you give yourself a lot of chances, your brain recognizes that. It's like, okay, well, if this one doesn't hit, then it's okay. I've already shot 1,000 other shots over here. And so some percentage of those are going to hit, and then that reduces anxiety. People say, oh, how are you so patient? Same thing. Again, I'm actually not. I want it to go much faster, but I accept the reality of the pace. And if I want it to go faster, I just have to do more work in a shorter period of time. Yeah, it's all rooted there.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, that's right here on our wall too.
There we go.
Yeah. That's so true. And it really sounds like, you don't really have a fear of failure. And maybe you did at one point, but I think that's kind of a big stumbling block for many people where they're just afraid to get that no, or they just don't feel that they have that confidence in themselves or
Yeah.
that idea. And it seems like you have that belief in what you're doing and that you're receptive to that feedback. Like you said, maybe someone doesn't see the value of your product, but you know the value and you're open to hearing critiques and ways to improve it and continuing to put yourself out there. And so I think that's the first step for many people is just, if you have an idea, run with it, see how it works. It's about trial and error. Don't get too hung up on the outcome immediately. Like it's all a part of that journey. And
Yeah.
it seems like that's why you've been successful because you're just willing to really dive into the journey. Like you said, be patient, even though, you want more results quicker and kind of to see that tangible impact happen now. But, it takes time. And so I
Yeah.
think that's, yeah, great.
Yeah, I would also add that well, one, you don't really have anything to lose when you put yourself out there. You're starting from wherever you are. Let's say you're in a job or you're in school. Um, the worst thing that can happen is that you end up right where you are right now, for the most part. Obviously, sometimes it is a matter of like survival, and when you're applying to certain things. And in those situations, I would absolutely apply to as many things as I possibly can, because it's a matter of survival. Um, but yeah, and then additionally, the fortune is in the follow up. It takes 5 to 12 exposures to whatever it is that you're trying to sell, for someone to buy or engage with it. That's just the math. And most of us, if we even make any exposures, it's probably one. Like we'll make one post about what we're selling. We'll send out one application. I've applied to some programs 4 times over the past 3 years. You know, I got applied to NextCube, for example, where we received our largest check last year. That was my third time applying to NextCube, and this time we got a $120,000 investment. Fortune is in the follow up because you're now telling a different story. They're now familiar with you, and again, this is happening, and it's going to continue to happen because we're still early. We're only 2.5 years in this thing. There are programs that I'm going to continue to apply to over the next few years, and eventually they're going to see the value that we're trying to bring, and and eventually cut the checks. And again, you have to be willing to yeah, modify and pivot along the way.
Absolutely. It's important to be persistent because I feel like any person with a successful story, that's kind of the key to it, is to just keep going even when you feel like, man, no one's buying my product, no one's listening, no one cares. You got to keep going and not give up on yourself because everyone says if I gave up here, I would have never made it to where it was going to be, or it would have never been as successful if I stopped because I didn't think anyone cared. So thank you for that advice. And I feel like that's a good pivot into our next question and topic. So you have an entirely black team at Bear, and according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, fewer than 10% of entrepreneurs are black. It was also reported that among startups backed by venture capital, 14.5% were ran by women and only 2.4% were Hispanic and black. And we were wondering if you can share the importance of representation in this space and how you've been able to source support from those with similar passions, lived experiences, and commitment to the work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, we know why these stats are, here today. Most of my team members are people that I knew from college. So Taylor Smith, that's my best friend from college here at Xavier. Or Dr. Taylor Smith. Put some respect on her name. She's a radiology resident at Emory University. Her and I kind of came up with the idea together in 2020. She hasn't been super involved. She's more so been here as a kind of supporting advisor, thought partner. But she's been in medical school and residency the whole time, which that's a whole. She probably works more than me. I don't know. Um, and then Javon, cross country teammate from Xavier. Bree, also Dr. Sims, a cross country teammate from Xavier. Again, early on, you're not really in a position to pay folks. Maybe you can offer some equity, and you just have to again put yourself out there. I post about bear health all the time, and those who are passionate about the work reach out. And it's really cool when people reach out too, because obviously I always need help, but when people reach out, I think it's a strong indication that they're willing to work on this thing just off the passion of the that they have for this type of work. When I was interviewing interns this summer, I mentioned to them, I said, you don't work for me, you don't work for Bear, you work for the 2,500 people in our community who are on our app that need help with their health goals. That's who you work for. And so I'm not looking for people who say maybe are just looking for an internship, to add to their resume, but I'm looking for people who would be doing this work regardless and can use Bear as a vehicle for about 10 weeks to carry out that passion. And I think that's important. And again, when I'm solving this problem specifically, like maximizing health in the Black community, obviously Black people are going to be more interested in solving that problem. And so I think it's a combination of people who just love and support me and want to support in that capacity, as well as people who are passionate about this work. So Dr. Eric Griggs, who serves as an advisor for us as well, he he's a local health influencer in the city. He's been doing community health work for about 30 years. And last year, around April or so, I was filming this panel that he was on, and I generated some clips. And he was like, "Man, I like what you're doing with that camera." And again, I'm founder and CEO of Bear Health, but I'm sitting behind a camera, filming a health panel at a conference. So we also would be having the humility to try to lift other people up along your way or along the way, even if you have this big vision for who you think you are and who you think you're going to be. But that got his attention, and we started kind of working together. And eventually, he did 1 million steps on our app in May last year. Lost 30 pounds or lost 20 pounds, and got taken off his blood pressure medication, and became a super champion for our work. And then just kind of naturally started share, basically bringing my name and Bear into the space that he was in, and that's how he essentially became a champion of our work. So that's been my story. However, now as I'm looking to put together, our true team as we launch the official Bear Health app this fall, I'm leaning on the networks that I've built from all of the incubator programs and accelerator programs that we've done. Right, so they are all familiar with Bear Health. They see that I'm still chugging along with it. Actually reached out to one of the past incubator programs and say, "Hey, I'm interested in this advisor that you had working with this other company, being a part of our team, like in a fractional, part-time capacity, and they let me know that this person is highly interested in working with us. Also a black woman, um, and has like significant experience, right? She already has 2 exits under their belt, right? They've already essentially built and sold 2 companies, and again, highly interested in working with us. So that's how I found that one. And it varies. But again, keeping your ultimate goal as clear as possible is the number one factor for attracting the right people, because people people need clarity, and people will follow what you do, or what you essentially envision, or ask them to do. So it's important that is definitely what you want to do, because someone will come in here and do work and then take your company exactly in that direction, and that better be the direction that you want your company to go. Otherwise, it can cause conflict.
That is so helpful. And I really love hearing that all these relationships have really contributed to you being able to make this idea come to fruition. And it seems like you're really service oriented and that you didn't just go into this to create a tech startup and boost your profits. Like you're really trying to solve health inequity. And so I think that's amazing. And, even like you said, it's a niche topic where it's specific to our community. And we're, of course, going to take more interest into it. But I do think that awareness and that education is important for everyone to learn about. And so I hope that it continues to expand beyond us and that people are interested in getting their own health scores.
Yeah.
And I also was hoping to hear a little bit more about those mentors that you said you found. I know you just met some of them organically at different events and you had the humility to do things like film a panel at these conferences and such. But how did you find some of those mentors? Was that just through your time at Xavier, or did you just reach out to folks and say, hey, will you be my mentor, or I have this idea, can we workshop it together? Or kind of what did that look like?
Yeah, so I would say it started. I remember in undergrad, it started, at first when I started building up my own profile. So you do have to put some work in on the front end to attract the right mentor. So you need to be doing your best, right? Doing your best in the classroom, doing your best in, whatever extracurriculars you have, to start to stand out, because people are paying attention. They're looking for students that they can kind of help elevate. And they want to know that they're not going to waste their time working with someone who isn't serious about themselves. Right? You first have to show that you're serious about yourself. And then I go to a lot of events. I would say, my number one tactical strategy for finding mentors is going to events, introducing yourself, and telling them what your vision is. That's it. Uh, when I was the summer that I was at the Brown internship program, we had a symposium. So every student that was a part of the Leadership Alliance summer research program throughout the country came together in, I think it was Connecticut, to have a symposium. And every single institution I was interested in applying to for my PhD program, I emailed their director of diversity for the PhD program. And it was so funny because 4 of them came to my poster, and they all 4 came at the same time. It was so crazy, and
That's
kind of
so
awkward.
wild.
It was kind of awkward because one of them was like,
Yeah.
"Well, he sent me a personal email, so that's fine." And they're like, "Oh, well, he sent me a personal email."
Like, hold
Again,
on a second.
shoot multiple shots, right? Give yourself as many chances as you can. And then the things like that, like moments like that, really signal to them the type of person that you are, type of student that you are, type of entrepreneur that you are. And then someone will be like, yeah, reach out to me if you need anything. It's a very common line. Reach out to me if you need anything. And one thing that I've been really good about is reaching out to people when I need something. Uh, if I think that they might be able to help me in that capacity, or if they're not the person that can help me, they can connect me with somebody. Most of the value in this world is in other people, and so it's really important to build these relationships. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the approach, is to, again, be serious about yourself, display that, go to events related to things that you're interested in, or in fields that you're trying to advance in. Introduce yourself, tell them what you're about. Um, there's actually one more story from so I was applying to this program, or I learned about this program called the Kirchner Food Fellowship. So the Kirchner Food Fellowship was a fellowship program where they train students to become impact investors. So impact investors is kind of like essentially Shark Tank, except there are two bottom lines, right? There's the financial bottom line and there's the impact bottom line. And I really like the idea of being an impact venture capitalist, because you get to, have your hand in a variety of, impact related efforts, whether it's climate change or health or what have you. Uh, and yeah, I like diversity in my day. And so I really like the idea of being an impact venture capitalist. But anyway, I was introduced to that program by one of my professors at my public health or in my public health program. So again, I'm studying Masters of Public Health with a concentration in health equity. However, in my personal statement, I communicated clearly that my vision was to build a health ecosystem through a technology platform, that connects essentially all Black health professionals and it delivers care to Black individuals. And so my professors knew that I was interested in entrepreneurship, right? So again, being really good about communicating clearly what you're interested in. So she was connected with another individual in the city who was starting a health equity innovation firm in the city, just kind of in the early days of that. And this is back in 2021, early 2021, late 2020. And so I think she reached out to him and said, "Hey, I have a student that's interested in entrepreneurship. Um, just wanted to make sure I could connect you to." Well, he was connected with the Kirshner Food Foundation, who was starting this fellowship program. And he said, "Well, hey, send this application to him. I think he'd be a good fit for it." So I applied to this impact venture capital program. Again, this wasn't an entrepreneurship program. This was an investor program. And I got in and built another network there. That was a year-long program where we evaluated 60 plus companies related that were 60 plus companies that were investing in or developing solutions to improve nutritional health in Black communities. That was a thesis that we came up with as a team. And now that's a whole network that I have, a very strong one that's been really valuable to me over time. And so, again, people are going to be working behind the scenes so long as you give them clarity.
That's a great. And it sounds like, you just kept showing up and, wanting to ask for help, but also taking those offers from people too. And people definitely will want to be generous with their time if you're clear on your vision and you're dedicated to what you're doing. Because I think too, like you said, you need to show them that you're serious about the idea because why would they take any interest when they have, a million other things going on too, right? And so like
Exactly.
you said, those follow-ups matter, the relationships matter. And I think it's so great that you talked about just having a clear objective and also that all these other endeavors that you were doing outside of just, your academics actually were enriching your ideas so much more. Because I think sometimes students can get caught up in just the grades and taking the tests and trying to do well instead of thinking about, well, what are the internships, what are the fellowships available, what are these experiential learning opportunities that are at my disposal on this campus right now. And so I think, yeah, that's incredibly valuable for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like this is very good advice for young professionals and youth because I feel like a lot of times people are afraid to leverage those personal networks and ask people for help. And it seems to be like that's a key to your success is actually being like, hey, I'm going to follow up with you. I'm actually going to seek this advice or see what you have to say so that I can continue to chart my own path. And switching gears a little bit, I was wondering if you could speak more about being proactive to prevent health issues. I feel like it's really important because a lot of people, like you said, they kind of wait till after they're diagnosed with something or run up against some health issues before they start taking it seriously. And I know me, I'd be pigging out. And then I'm like, damn, I know this is going to catch up to me eventually. So I was
Hmm.
wondering if you could speak to the importance of just being proactive about, maintaining your health and any tips you have for our community.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have tons building a whole company around it. But I think this is so tough. This is such a tough problem to solve in this country, especially in the Black community. Because, there are two problems. We have just the culture of America is one of overindulgence in, let's say, well, just overindulgence in many things. Consumption of, products and services, consumption of food, consumption of alcohol. And I do think that there's a moment right now where we are trending a little bit more in the other direction, and we love that. And hopefully it's not just a trend. It becomes like a true shift. But I think it starts with awareness. Again, because it has become so normalized, like much of our lifestyle, we don't really make the connection between our lifestyle and our health outcomes. Our lifestyles got normalized to where now it's normal to eat fast food every day, but it's also now normal to have hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers. And I don't think everybody's drawing the connection between our diets, for example, or our how sedentary our lives are and our health outcomes. We know we should eat healthy. We know that we should exercise, but I don't think that it's clear to everyone, especially in the Black community, that eating unhealthy for this period of time leads to this disease at this time. That's not clear. And that's what we're trying to communicate to people. So when I first came up with the idea for Bear Health, it was actually received a text message from my aunt, who's a physician's assistant. She also went to Xavier, and she's working in the clinic during the pandemic, the peak of the pandemic. And she's seeing patient after patient in there with severe illness from COVID-19. The majority of them are Black. The majority of them have type 2 diabetes, hypertension, some cancers. And she knows all of these things are preventable, right? And so she reaches out to me, said, "Hey, nephew, I think this would be a great time for you to kick off your healthy eating initiative again." So I'm the vegan in the family. And that's the initiative she was referencing. And I just took that seriously. So that was May or so, 2020. And my first thought was that we don't know how bad we're doing as it relates to our health in the Black community. Again, we know we need to be doing better, but I don't think we're all clear on the fact that if we don't get it together, especially young people, we could have a heart attack at 46 and that'd be it. Stroke at 46 and that'd be it. My mom's good friend actually lost her husband to a stroke at 46, and they had a 13-year-old son. And that problem right there, that moment, that experience now for that child is the problem that I'm trying to solve and the problem that I'm trying to prevent. Because now he has to grow up Black in America without a father. It's already hard enough. And it's preventable. Strokes are preventable on the whole. And again, I know that there are tons of cases where there are unique predispositions that people might have to certain medical conditions, but those are few and far between. Uh, for example, obesity. Uh, the medical system in different ways is really trying to turn it into a medical issue. And it is a condition for sure. And I think that that's the right move. But once it becomes a medical issue, then now it has a medical solution, which is now what we're seeing with Ozempic and these other GLP-1 drugs. But all these drugs are doing is getting people to change their behavior, which is they're just eating less. And again, when you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you, oh, you have a chemical mix up in your brain, and that's why I think they're making a mistake of pacifying people. And it's not just with obesity; it's with hypertension, it's with type 2 diabetes. Oh, it might run in your family. Just because something runs in your family doesn't mean that you have to have it. Predispositions don't mean that you develop the disease. It just means that if you put your body in the conditions that do drive that disease, you're more likely to, or you will develop it quicker. But if you are predisposed to type 2 diabetes, like all your family had type 2 diabetes, your mom, your grandmother, grandfather, but you eat a healthy diet your entire life and you exercise, you will not develop type 2 diabetes. My grandfather's 87 years old, does not have a single chronic health condition. Just because something is common doesn't mean that it's normal, that it's the way that it should be. And so I think that's the first thing that people need to understand is that we don't have it right in this country as it relates to our health, and that we need to look elsewhere where people are living long and well into their 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, and make that the blueprint. So there are these areas of the country or areas around the world called blue zones where people are living into their 100s on a regular basis compared to the rest of the surrounding areas. And they look at the core tenets of these communities, and they're rooted in purpose, they're rooted in community, they're rooted in eating 95 to 100% plant-based diets. Movement is centered in all aspects of their lives. They don't really go to the gym. They're not like again, on the spin master doing like they just move throughout their day. They get up and down off the floor for different things. And again, when you look at what definitely drives these disparities, it's what we do every day, not necessarily what you do on special occasions like with your family at Thanksgiving and things like that. And I just think that we absolutely need a complete shift, culture shift, as it relates to our relationship to food, our relationship to health. Um, and at the end of the day, we're competing with everything that's trying to get people's attention right now. And so we have to flood the zone. We have to push out content related to health. We have to push out more content. We have to pay for more ads around these ideas because again, it needs to be a cultural shift for people, and we got to get non-negotiable about it. Like we have to stop, making people feel like it's okay to constantly consume things that aren't good for them. And then if they feel like that's okay, then we need to check in on what's going on with them mentally and emotionally, which brings me to the actual problem that I think exists. People aren't having a great time in their lives. And I think there's plenty of reason to not be having a great time. There are a lot of things to be upset about. But when we aren't having a good time, we look for meaning in short-term pleasures. For some people, it's social media, doom scrolling. Some people, it's eating their favorite foods, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Um, and we have to figure out that problem. So, public health is the art and science of prolonging life, but we need to figure out the art and science of prolonging the desire to live, because the desire to live is the root of longevity. And we need to figure out how we can set up society such that people want to be here as long as they possibly can, not to miss out on the experience, because then we can leverage um, the motivation of survival and getting people to change their behavior. It's like, I don't want to do something that's going to reduce my time here because I want to be here. I want to be here with my family, my friends, so on and so forth. And for the experience for myself. So that was a lot. I don't even know if I answered the question, but
Did
You
figure out why
definitely
you're
did.
here.
Yeah, there
yeah.
was so much. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna say figure out why you're here.
Right. I really love that point that you made about us trying to pacify people, because this could be a whole nother rant of mine. And I don't know if we want to go into this, but I definitely feel like the medical system kind of feeds into big pharma in the sense, like you said, they will encourage people to get on, blood pressure medication and things like that instead of emphasizing serious, like, healthy lifestyle changes. Like they might mention that, but I feel like when you go to the doctor, their goal is to kind of get you on a prescription and things like that. And I had an experience with my grandma where she was a little unhealthy, and I was like, "You need to have more fiber intake. You need to have more protein to reduce your sugar cravings. You need to take some of these natural supplements." And she ended up losing 30 pounds and is a lot more healthy. And she went to her doctor and she was like, "I actually started doing these things and this worked, instead of all the medications." And so I feel like it's really important, like you said, for us to shift the culture and promote healthy lifestyles rather than, "Oh, you have high blood pressure, you're predisposed, just get on this medication."
Yep, it's a
Yeah.
big problem.
Yeah, definitely. And I echo much of what you said, Brad, especially when it comes to taking ownership of your health. And, Kwame, I think you made a fantastic point about the fact that it's a lifestyle switch and that, as a culture in America, especially, we don't encourage folks to be active and get outside. Like our priorities are off where we're centering a lot of times our work productivity, we're centering consumption, we're looking for, those short term like dopamine hits, like you mentioned, and it really shouldn't be overcomplicated to be healthy. Like you said, it's having a healthier diet, it's getting outside, it's just being active in little ways and not making it such a huge, undertaking to, be healthy. It's not even going to the gym. It may just be, like you said, taking a few more steps every single day and cleaning up
Yep.
your diet a little bit, trying to be plant-based. Even if you're not 100% vegan, just work at those in every now and then until you keep improving. And so, yeah, I think it's just so great that you speak to that. And then pivoting a little bit, I know you've mentioned a lot about how bears come to be, and that you were willing to put yourself out there. You continued to submit those applications for many of those grants and incubator programs. But what is a significant moment of adversity you faced while launching Bear, if there has been any, which I'm sure there has, and what are the strategies that you've used to overcome this the last 2.5 years?
Yeah. I actually want to add one comment on our previous conversation, because I do want to simplify it for people if possible. So the first step, if you are, say, wanting to be healthier, first step is having an objective. So the desire to be healthier, the desire to live longer, whatever it is for you, or the desire to run more, just some sort of objective associated with your wellness. And the second thing you need is a time bound, say, test of that objective. So I want to run more. Okay, let me sign up for a 5K in 3 months and perform at a certain level that would indicate to me that I'm running more, that I'm a better runner. And then the third thing is you need a community of people to do it with. Those three things are so important. And the last one is the most important because when you get around other people, you get to borrow essentially their energy from them. You don't necessarily take energy away from them, but being around other people who are already on this kind of wavelength is the biggest hack that I can offer to people for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Let's say you don't even know what to you don't even know what to pursue in life. Let's say you just can't even come up with a vision. Get around people who seemingly have a very clear direction for their lives. And then all of a sudden directions will start emerging in your brain. It's just how it works. Because again, everything that we were talking about before can seem very complex and abstract, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly where to start with that. The starting point is awareness and an objective, and the solution is getting around other people who already have accomplished that. Everything else will follow. So anyway, I just wanted to add that comment just to simplify it for folks so that they didn't have any excuses. um, and your question was adversity. Again, one thing that I've done a good job of is essentially, I guess, inoculating myself from many of the challenges that entrepreneurs face. One of the main ones being financial. So, what I tell any entrepreneur, really any person now, especially starting off early in their career, is to keep your expenses as low as possible. As low as possible, right? I live with my grandparents right now. I don't have to pay rent. Um, that's a huge now that's a sacrifice. Most people probably don't want to live with their grandparents. And I get that. And that may not be a sacrifice that you end up making, but it's just the idea of sacrificing certain conveniences and comforts early on so that you can invest more of your time and money into the future that you're building for yourself. It's all temporary, but um, time is the most valuable asset here. Being able to focus almost exclusively on one thing just makes you more efficient. So the main challenge that we faced is adversity, or most adversity that we face is around financial ebbs and flows because we're still more or less a pre-revenue company. Obviously, we've made a lot of impact. We have a lot of users and all that stuff, but we haven't essentially created our recurring revenue stream yet. And in about 2 months, we're going to start pushing that, but we're still dependent on external capital, and external capital will come in a lump sum, and then you go through that money, and then now it's okay. Well, how do I eat today? How do I put gas in my car today? How do I do all that and stay focused on doing the work to get me out of this situation? Those are really challenging things, and then there have been weeks, months where it is harder to get up, even if you're super passionate about what you're doing. It's just difficult. It's just heavier every day when you have a whole team and a whole operation, and you aren't sure if you're going to eat that day. Now, fortunately, I fast often, so my body's accustomed to, I guess, the inconsistency sometimes of meals. And so, again, maybe something to consider as an entrepreneur, intentionally fasting the majority of your time, so that when you are forced to fast because you don't have any money, it doesn't hit you as hard. I think I'm being serious about that. But
That's a way to get into intermittent fasting. There you go.
yeah, preparation for entrepreneurship, intermittent fast. Um, it's funny. But the way that I get out of them, one is just setting up my life to where it just doesn't hit as hard. if I'm in a position where I, have $5,000 a month in personal bills and something falls apart with the business, well, I'm in a pretty bad spot. But if my bills are under $2,000 a month, let's say, because I'm making sacrifices elsewhere, then it doesn't hurt as bad, right? And it allows you to again be able to maintain the amount of time that you're putting into your work so that you can get out of that situation. But again, ultimately, it comes down to the core activities that that lead to the outcomes, or they give you the best chance at the outcomes. I think the first 2 or 3 times that we had like a financial downturn, it definitely hurt more. I think I stressed more because this was my first time going from having raised $80,000 in our first year in business to now not having any money. Let's say funding didn't come through that we expected, um, just funding just didn't come through in that period, and we made some bets with the money when we had it, and they didn't pan out the way we hoped, or what have you, or just things aren't going to move the way that you think that they are. Just that's just how it works. And so then you have to weather a 2 3 month period where you don't really have any money, and so you're scrapping on the side to make a few dollars here and there, to keep the lights on essentially. But after the first two, and the timing of the first two, it became clear to me that this, at least in the early days, is just going to be some sort of flow, some sort of cycle. Because every time we did go down, a few months later, things came back up in a very, very beautiful fashion. And so I remember last year, at the beginning of the year, we had just launched Bear Health, or we did just launched our beta app in January, February of 2024. And we had this big challenge where we thought a bunch of people were going to come on and we'd make a bunch of money, and we were giving away this large cash prize. Well, we didn't make nearly as much money as we hoped to make. A lot of people joined, and every time I tell people how many people joined, they're like, "Wow, it's a lot for your first challenge." I'm like, "Yeah, it'd be great if that also returned the amount of money I needed back to keep things afloat for the next few months." So after that challenge, again, we had to pay the individual who won, and now we're just kind of in a very tight spot as a company. And I hadn't been applying to as many programs because, well, let me just focus on growing my business now that we have our product out. So that was a mistake. Uh, don't let off the gas, especially not after year one. And so I had to get back to kind of that work. I started also doing some content services on the side, still related to what we're working on. So we spun up and yeah, I guess a vertical of our business called Bear Media, where we offered content services for health related brands. So kind of double dipping, right? So getting content for our brand, but also being able to bring a little bit of cash in the company. And that honestly kept us afloat for the 3 months that we did not have any investments or grants. But it was still tight. I did get back to our bread and butter of applying to programs, and um, yeah, April, May, June, completely dry. July, we got into the what's it called? The Health Innovators Hub at Essence Fest, where that came with a $7,000 grant, and we got to have a booth at Essence Fest. We got like 400 users in a weekend.
That's
Lots
so
of
cool. That's huge.
Mhm.
Essence Fest. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
Essence is a really big festival. About half a million
Yeah.
people come to New Orleans for that. So yeah, we got 400 users in one weekend, and we only had, I think, 200 users on the app at the time. So we we definitely grew a great deal over that weekend. So we got that $7,000 grant from them. And again, now all of the traction is building, and I have a base of applications that I've been sending out, and we got into NextQ, which was the program that I applied to for I think the third time, and that comes with a six-figure investment. And so we went from no cash pretty much all year, first half of the year, and then we ultimately came up and had 6 figures, enough money for, based on our monthly burn rate, a while, you know. And after that happened a couple times, after we went down and came back, I'm like, okay, well, this is just part of it. So now I kind of thrive in those times. I dig a little deeper into our vision. I think I dream a bit bigger, And I use that pressure, that anxiety, to come up with more creative ideas. I know that we're going to come out of it. We were just in one May, June of this year. There are going to be people who along the way will come to save the day, so long as you're communicating with people what you're dealing with. One of our advisors actually made a $20,000 investment into the company in June when things were tough, and that again, I won't know until later on, like the impact that had. Like angel investors are truly angels at times, and that's absolutely what she was in that moment. But um, I did want to add one last note. And sorry if I'm jumping around.
No, you're good. Take your time.
The the program that we got into with Essence, the Health Innovators Hub, that actually came by way of a networking opportunity that I went to. So in 2023 at Essence Fest, they had the Health Incubator or Health Innovators Hub, and I applied like maybe day before the application was due, but they had more or less selected their people already, and they weren't aware of Bear Health at the time. Again, this is 2023. We were at Essence Fest in the community section before we had our app and that year in 2023, but I went over to the Health Innovators Hub networking session. I introduced myself to the organizer, and she more or less guaranteed my admittance for the following year, and she delivered on that. And so just put yourself out there. There are good people out here doing work and who want to support what you're doing. They just need to know about you. But make sure it's everybody. Make sure everybody knows, because you never know who has what and what value they can bring. And they love to do this type of work. So yeah, we get through adversity by dreaming bigger when times are tough, getting more creative. Again, because now you really have nothing to lose. You're at the bottom. You went up a little bit now. Now things are really tough, and you know can't go any further down from here. So why not just dream as big as you possibly can, because you can leverage that vision to turn on different parts of you that you need to get out of this moment. And that was actually part of when I came up with the idea to do 2 million steps in 30 days and break the world record for the most steps in 30 days, and all of the energy that has created for the company has led to a bunch of other successes that we've had over the past month that I can't even identify all of them, because it's just been so many. But again, it's all rooted in staying focused, keeping the vision clear, continuing to talk to people even when it gets hard. That's just what it is.
That's so great. And it's so critical, like you said, to get used to kind of the volatility of this type of journey that you're on as a startup founder. You're our first startup founder that we've had on this platform, actually. And so I'm learning so much just, hearing about how you've been able to bounce back from those adverse experiences. And it just seems like you have a lot of resilience. Like even when you said you hit rock bottom, things couldn't have been any worse. Now you've overcome those. And so you can look back and be like, well, we lost all our money, but we made it back again. And so, you can do it the next time and the next time. But hopefully those lessons you start to, utilize
Right, yeah,
them.
they
Yeah.
absolutely must lesson. That would be
Yeah.
great. I would appreciate it tremendously. But I
Yeah.
do also recognize as I continue to go through, and what can also motivates me is just knowing that most other people won't do this.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity. Things that most people won't do is an opportunity for you.
Hmm.
And so when I'm faced with difficult problems or challenges, I don't see them as like inconveniences. I
Yeah.
see them as opportunities, because I just know that the regular everyday person won't deal with
Yeah.
what yeah, they won't do what needs to be done to execute on that, and that's an opportunity.
That's so great. Yeah. And I think too, like pressure's a privilege is what they say. And so I think
Mm.
you've shown to be an example of that, and that you have an opportunity, you're taking advantage of it, and you're continuing to pursue it.
This is very valuable advice, and it shows, like Tiana said, the highs and lows of being an entrepreneur and having a startup. And that's why I've heard people say, it takes a certain mindset. It takes a willingness to sacrifice, like you said, and to not always be super certain about things. And that's what separates someone who like might need a 9 to 5. Nothing's wrong with that, but it's that consistency, it's the stability. And then other people are willing to be like, you know what, I have this dream and I'm going to put it all out there, and I got to trust it's going to work out even when it seems like it's not at the moment. So
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and with that, I was wondering, it seems like you've just, through your experience, you've garnered a lot of wisdom for yourself, and like you said, through your mentors. And if you could reflect back on your younger self as a Black boy from the position you are in today, what words of wisdom would you share?
Um, Keep trying hard. You know how in high school, you know the term a try hard, right? So it's just doing the most. I think sometimes people saw me that way. Um, and so I sometimes would like tone down my effort because just to, I guess, fit in a bit more or, yeah, just not be annoying because I also wanted to fit in socially. Uh, and there's some actual justification around it, some validation around that because you like socially, we're obviously all connected and it's important to each of us for our mental well-being to be connected and feel welcomed to parts of our community. And sometimes it can get annoying if someone is going, always going hard and taking everything super seriously, even when it's supposed to be just like fun and games, like beer pong, for example. Again, so I didn't drink at all, and I was almost like anti-alcohol. There was no alcohol growing up in my family. But then I was at a party one day uh, in high school. This might sound bad anyway, but I was at a party and they were playing beer pong. I was like, "Oh, that looks fun," but they wouldn't let me play if I didn't drink, and so I had to drink. But then I got really good at the game because I just try hard again at everything. And then again, it just becomes less fun for people sometimes when there's that one person that's trying to go above. But how you do everything or how you do anything is how you do everything. And though you may be excelling within your current environment, there's a whole world out there that you're competing with to help evolve the human species, right? Not necessarily competing with so that you can be better than, but like there are people out there who are far further along in their respective fields than you are, or the field that you want to pursue or that you want to grow in as well. And so I think looking back, I would just tell myself to continue trying hard because just because you're doing well in this environment doesn't mean that you're not at the bottom of the list in some other environment or in some other region. And yeah, still more work to do. So that's what I would say. Still more room for improvement. So stay at it. But like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so great too. And I think also you kind of point to the fact that people's like perceptions of us can really affect our own personal decisions and like our confidence in ourselves. But it seems like you've been able to really come into who you are and, embody all that that means to be authentic for you. Even if some people may call you a try hard or whatever it is, it's like for you, well, you're trying to build your dream. And so who cares
Mhm.
what they think, honestly.
Yeah, who
Um,
cares?
yeah, but like getting to the end, we're at the end of our interview almost. We're almost to our last question. I can't believe how fast it's gone. But I was hoping you'd be able to share just like one maybe major goal you have for Bear Health Systems or just something that you're looking forward to as you continue to build this.
Yeah. So we're actually about to open up a space called Bear Connect. So
Oh, cool.
within the app right now, we have a directory platform for resources, providers, and events that can essentially just help people on their health journey, right? So when you first download the app, you answer a few questions about your eating habits, smoking and drinking habits, and then you get your initial score. Then that score is going to be between 0 and 1,000, and it's going to let you know, hey, based on your score, you are in the fair range, the good range, very good, or excellent. And based on that range, it'll let you know what your potential health risk might be. And then so our goal is to then help people connect to resources and experiences and providers to elevate that health. And so essentially, we're bringing Bear Connect, the directory, to life in a space called Bear Connect here in New Orleans, where it'll be more or less a co-working space by day and then a wellness center by night. So we'll host run club meetups, walk club meetups, yoga, meditation. Again, bringing that all to life in this space. It'll be exclusive to Bear Health members. So your access pass is your app. And so basically just walk in and show that and you're good to go. But I'm really excited about that. It's a whole nother operation. It's not a tech move, obviously not a tech play, but I think it's a necessary component of our vision because ultimately we want to have these centers nationwide where they're all connected to the app. And so long as you're on the Black Electronic Health Record, or that's what bEHR stands for, will know your history and be able to provide you tailored care. And so this will be our first iteration of that. In addition to the wellness and co-working, we'll have kind of like a screening center where you can do blood pressure, cholesterol, and glucose screening, so we can get those numbers as well. But yeah, that's the idea of Bear Health. Really, like I want to move away from us being regarded truly as a tech company, because the Black health problem isn't a technical problem, right? We don't need a new technology to solve the problem. It's a social and environmental and cultural problem. And if I can help curate, as I mentioned in our vision, a culture where health is just kind of at the center of it, and we can help people find opportunities to replace what they're currently doing in their life with something that we're offering that serves the same function but is in a health promoting way, then I'll be really happy about that. We need the technology because we can't improve what we aren't measuring. So we need the data to track the data and look at the report every month and see how we're doing as a community. Did we go up in average health score? Did we go down in mental well-being, so that we can be responsive to all of that? So that's why essentially the app will be your passport to all of our experiences, but we want the focus to be the experiences. So I'm really excited about that shift just in our company's focus overall.
That's so exciting. And that's so cool to, build community through these health hubs. And I really hope to see
Mhm.
those expand across the country like you're hoping for. And I was going to ask you, have you been to Seattle at all?
I actually have never been to Seattle, and it doesn't make any sense. I've been
Really? It's a healthy city. I think you would
Yeah,
love
no,
it.
I think I would too. No,
Yeah.
I've been to Portland, so
Okay.
I've
Close.
been to
Yeah.
Vancouver,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
never made it to Seattle.
Yeah, I was just thinking, man, this idea that you have of like building these, Bear Connect, I could see that like
Mhm.
definitely being successful in Seattle. And there's not a big Black population here, but it's so funny because Brad and we just went to a yoga event yesterday and we were like, man, this is so cool to see everyone come out to the park, taking the scene, the views, the Space Needle and the water and everything, and also like be healthy together. And there were like 300 people at this thing, and it was a free health event that was put on
Yeah,
by this local yoga studio. And we were like, we want to see more of us out here because we were one of the only few Black people there. Maybe there
yeah.
was like 10 of us, right? But I was like, it'd be so cool for us to all come together and like engage in these wellness practices, because I just don't think we're like either plugged into these health communities, or it's just we're not accustomed to going to these events. And so we need to start making it a part of our culture too. And so I think you're doing that. And that's, yeah,
Yeah.
so cool. But if you ever do a pop up in Seattle, let us know because we would be there.
Yeah, amazing. No, we certainly will, but we also lean on the community, people who are already there, like you guys,
Yeah.
to start it, And maybe it starts off with 5 people showing up to your community yoga, and then eventually it's 300, like that one. I do think that this model of community, low to no cost wellness activations is the answer, mainly because it hits on the community aspect of like our health needs. People are you guys have seen run clubs obviously become super popular. People hate running. You know that, right? People hate
That's
running.
so
I don't
I
hate
actually
running.
like running. So
You might like again, but it's
yeah.
I think the minority of people enjoy running, or at least think they do. Think they, but people are doing something that they generally hate just to be around other people in a very or a low pressure way, and that is something to pay attention to, and it speaks to how important community is. And so these community movements that are right now rooted in wellness, that can also be rooted in art, and can be rooted in all variety or all aspects of life, but they start with community. And so bear connect, the message, the slogan is find your community, right? It's not necessarily come get healthy in our wellness center, right? It's find your community, because that's the foundation of wellness, really.
I think that's brilliant. And I feel like in America, we have a culture of individualism. And so bringing people together in community, to better their health and making it a community centric thing, I think is very powerful and will only help that grow even more. Because, like you said, it's easy to get isolated and say, oh, I hate running, I hate doing this. But if you join a running club, you might really find, some people that you like and you vibe with, and it'll give you that motivation to say, hey, this is my community, these are people I'm meeting with similar interests, and maybe I don't hate it so much. So
Yeah. And that's what seems to happen. People either go from I don't hate it so much, or now I love it. I love running, and we've seen it all within our run club.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kwame. It's awesome to have you here, and I can't believe we're at the end of our interview. Like Tiana said, it's gone by so fast. And so our last question, this is something that we ask all of our guests because we believe our blackness is, defined by our unique experiences that we have for who we are and how we show up in the world. And so we ask all of our guests this question, based on your lived experience, what does blackness mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think blackness is greatness. At least that's what I'm trying to inspire. People ask me why, why we're focused on the black community, why the mission is to maximize black health. And I think it's important that I kind of parse that out because I'm actually not so much interested in how black health compares to the rest of the population. Right. I identify and highlight the disparities just so that people can understand that there's clearly a problem, right? Average life expectancy in the black community is 72 years. Average life expectancy of the rest of the population is 78. That's a 6-year gap. Right. And 6 years might not sound like a lot at 72 or 78 years old, but if you extrapolate that across the rest of the population, the black community is losing 268 million years of time on Earth. Time is our most valuable asset, and it compounds. Right. That's not just 268 million years of time. That's 268 million plus whatever the lost compounding effects are as well, which are obviously incalculable. And then part of why the gap continues to widen, we just have less time here. We will never catch up that way. But I'm actually not interested in achieving health equity per se. That is to say, like achieving the same life expectancy. I want to see what our maximum potential is as people. And so my vision for Black people, I don't know necessarily what I regard Blackness as right now, but my vision for Black people is greatness, achieving our complete potential, and however that manifests, always dreaming bigger, um, and in alignment with the core values that some are innate, some we do have to come up with ourselves because our environments don't necessarily communicate that or are conducive of that. But yeah, a pursuit of greatness. That's what I would like it to be. Uh, and I'll end with this note about a video I was watching yesterday and why it's so important to always be dreaming bigger, not because you're not satisfied with your current place, but you you are only going to become what you think is possible. Like that's the limitation of uh, your growth and development is what you believe is possible. And I'm not just talking about consciously. Less about what you believe consciously, more about what like you believe in your heart and in your soul. But Jameis Winston, everybody may or may not know Jameis Winston. He's a professional football player. He's more of an entertainer now, it seems like these days, as it relates to his football career. But great guy, great athlete. But he was asked if he felt like the NFL humbled him, right? Because he went from, obviously being top tier in college to getting drafted number one in the NFL. And then he's had a good career, but he hasn't necessarily had like a superstar career, you know. And his response was I thought was so intelligent. He said, I don't think that the NFL humbled me. I just don't think I was dreaming big enough. My dream was to make it to the league. And he made it to the league. He wasn't never dreaming of making it to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl or being a Hall of Famer. So he said he just wasn't dreaming big enough. And maybe he's shifting. He's still kind of young. He maybe could shift it from there. But again, don't like we are cutting ourselves off sometimes, and we don't even know it. And it's not it's not our fault. We're just not thinking about it. We're either trying to survive or trying to make it to something that we regard as, achievement, the pinnacle of life in society. But don't let society determine what the pinnacle is. I think that's another thing that is absolutely core to who I am. That makes me different from other people because the pinnacle or what's on offer here as the pinnacle of life is just not super interesting to me. It doesn't to me, call out of me all that I am. And so that's why I dream big, just to see what all is in here, because I think that we all need to become the best versions of ourselves, all who are achieve our ultimate potential. Because if we do, then uh, people suffer less ultimately, because we come up with better solutions and get more energy and passion around those solutions. So anyway, yeah, dream bigger, just to see what happens.
That's so great. Yeah, everything you said was so profound. And I love that you're kind of speaking to that point of envisioning, a bigger life for yourself because you can't envision what you can't see. And I think that also starts internally. Like you said, it's not just the representation that we see out every day, but it's like maybe you're that person who's going to create that whole new career path for someone else. Even though it's your own unique journey, you could be the first to ever do that. And so I think that's just beautiful. Like you said, pursuing greatness, whatever that means to you, and that it may not be out there right now. And you may be the exact person that's creating it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's that
absolutely.
ingenuity that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Brandon, do you have anything else to add?
I did not, other than we
Okay.
just appreciate your time. And I feel like this episode was so valuable on so many fronts, from the wisdom you shared to, health advice. I just feel like our listeners are going to greatly benefit from this.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree.
If you guys
Yeah.
want to keep, I was
Go
gonna,
ahead.
or I was gonna say you can follow me on Instagram at Kwame
Yes.
Terra or follow Bear Health, bEHR Health, and also make sure you download our app,
Yes.
get your
I will be
health,
doing that.
join a challenge. Wonderful.
Great. Yeah, I was going to ask you to drop all the socials and everything. So we'll definitely be shouting you out on social media. I will be downloading the app and getting my health score after this. I hope to eventually make it to New Orleans because I've never been there and go to Bear Connect.
Please do.
So
Please
yeah,
do.
we really want to continue to like build this community. That's what our platform has been about too, is just figuring out, how to bring us all together, even across the country. And if it's virtual right now, as we're starting out, eventually it may grow into an in-person space, kind of like what you're doing. And so, yeah, I really just appreciate all that you're putting out to the world and the positivity, and you're doing so much for our community. So thank you so much. And our aspiring startup founder listeners are going to find everything you shared so valuable.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. We deeply appreciate your support as we work to uplift the Black community and explore our unique experiences within the Black diaspora on Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana
And Brad.
Thank you so much.